Have you ever had the feeling that something is wrong with this world? As if you see something that others do not notice. People around, they live as if they are immersed in light anesthesia, having fun, running, hiding, and you are trying to talk about something important, real, deep, and in return, you get silence, empty glances, or condescending jokes. This is not an accident. This is a pattern. The more you think, the more clearly you see, and the more clearly you see, the farther you are from others. Society does not tolerate those who look too deeply into the essence. It's not because you're arrogant or arrogant, it's just that most of them hide behind masks, and you've learned to see them. You're not broken, you're awake. And the awakened afraid. Arthur Schopenhauer, a philosopher of rare insight, wrote, "A high mind makes a man unloved, not because he himself leaves, but because it is repelled by the world." That is okay. He is not afraid to look into the eyes of the pain of existence. Such a mind is alarming. It threatens the most precious thing that people protect, their illusions. We live in a world where it is permissible to demonstrate luxury, beauty, even strength, but not wisdom. Real wisdom is frightening. It does not decorate, it exposes. She pulls out of the shadows what seemed cozy to others. And most prefer to remain blind rather than face the truth that you can no longer see. If you watch this video and feel that you do not fit in, that you are not understood, you should know that it is not your fault. It's the price to pay for being able to see more. But in this vision, there is power. In this loneliness, there is greatness. And there is no way to fit into a world created not by for you, but in learning to live in it, preserving yourself. This video is not for a crowd. This is a conversation with you, with those who are called too difficult, with those who understood. Thinking is not weakness, but courage. It's a choice, it's a challenge. And we will talk about this. If there's anything familiar to you about it, stay. Finally, someone will say something you've always felt, but were afraid to say. A feeling of discomfort that you experience when you just try to be yourself among others. It's not an illusion. Music. There are deep psychological reasons why intelligent, thinking, reflective people often cause rejection, even without showing any aggression. This phenomenon is known as the mirror effect. When you come to company and say something more meaningful, when you ask uncomfortable questions, doubt the generally accepted. When your mind clarifies the essence of things, something breaks inside the interlocutor. It's not you who cross the boundaries, it's your way of thinking that unwittingly makes someone else look in the mirror. And the fact that he sees it there, anxiously. Most people build their personalities on inherited ideas, superficial values, and borrowed opinions. When they meet you, they encounter the emptiness inside for the first time. And this is frightening. Your thought is not just a thought. This is a silent invitation to the inner gaze, and inner honesty hurts. You become a reminder of what people try not to think about, what they avoid seeing, what they don't want to feel. Reflex, reaction, rejection. But it's not about you, it's about what you awaken in others. Shaping our stated, the higher the reason, especially since it is lonely. Society rejects what it does not understand. This is not a conspiracy, this is an instinct. People protect not reason, but the image of themselves. When you question the illusion in which they are used to living, you are perceived as a threat. Therefore, when you raise the topics of meaning, existence, free will, or social masks, it is as if you invade the forbidden zone. Not because you are imposing your truth, but because you are destroying the fragile structure inside which a person feels safe. He does not need to wake up, he needs to continue sleep. But don't think it's a new phenomenon. History is full of those who have been ostracized, ridiculed, or forced to be silent. Not because they were wrong, but because they dared to be a mirror in a room full of masks. Think about it. Why society clinging to his illusions so much, even when the truth is near? Why is thinking deeply dangerous? The answer is that we live in a culture where comfort is more important than truth, and anything that violates that comfort is declared enemy. We are approaching the most painful part. And if you're still with me, then you're ready to look in there where most do not dare to look. The truth in itself is intolerable to the majority. It hurts. It breaks the foundations, undermines what people are used to calling normality. And that is why society, as a living organism, has developed a powerful survival mechanism. It protects comfort, not truth. Anything that jeopardizes this comfort is instinctive, is rejected. A deep mind is not just a repository of knowledge, it is the ability to see the hidden, to recognize patterns, to doubt the obvious, and not to trust common sense when it turns out to be just a habit. But this is where the problem. The so-called common sense is the basis of public order. It maintains day-to-day stability and roles distributed among people. When someone suddenly voices the truth, which everyone tried not to notice, it destroys the entire facade. Therefore, a person who is able to see more deeply is perceived not as a sage, but as a problem. Shopping is great, understood. He believed that most people live in a state of voluntary illusion, driven by what he called blind will. They don't need to understand the world. They just need to somehow survive in it. And preferably with minimal internal turmoil, finding the truth in this light. The occupation is not just rare, but antisocial. It requires a break with the familiar, requires courage and, worst of all, a willingness to lose what came before seemed unshakable. And who among us will willingly part with what he has believed all his life, even if it is a lie? Therefore, society encourages the obedient, those who do not ask questions. A student who repeats formulas without understanding gets excellent evaluation. An employee who unquestioningly follows orders is promoted. A citizen who keeps pace with the majority is considered a good person. And he who thinks for himself is declared strange, difficult, dangerous, because he is an exception that breaks the rule. And it's no coincidence that the most popular materials on the internet are fast, superficial, flashy. The intellect requires a pause, and to stop and to think today is almost a revolutionary act. While the majority is chasing instant gratification, the thinking, a person goes towards internal discomfort, and that is why it becomes dangerous. System, culture, even education. Everything is arranged so that you are distracted, but not awakened. From childhood, we are taught to fit in, not to ask questions. And if you suddenly break out of this program, you begin to see how it works. A mechanism under a mask, you are excluded as if you are a virus. But maybe this virus is just the cure. What if it is the ability, thinking deeply, is able to heal the emptiness that many feel but cannot explain? Why then society still treats the thinker as a threat? Answer: in the very pain that is brought by the loneliness of those who dare see. The loneliness you feel is not a mistake, it's part of the journey. This is a pattern that is encountered everyone who refuses to perceive the world superficially. History is inexorable. Everyone who dared to think too much, to see too clearly, to speak too frankly, to be isolated. And we are not talking about well-known marginals. We are talking about geniuses who changed the course of humanity. Socrates is sentenced to death for teaching people to think. Accusation, corruption, youth, reality. It awakened consciousness. Galileo was forced to deny the truth in order to save his life. Nikola Tesla died alone, while the whole world felt those who appropriated his ideas. Schopenhauer, one of the most penetrating minds of the 19th century, spent his life in contempt of his contemporaries, becoming recognized only by the post-mortem. The mechanism is clear. The deeper the thought, the stronger the rejection. Why? Because there is a thinking failure in the system. He doesn't fit in, he doesn't repeat, he doesn't obey. He looks from the sidelines, asks uncomfortable questions. And what is most painful, it points to contradictions that no one wants to see. Causes anxiety, anger, fear, and society does not forgive those who force him to look in the mirror. Moreover, rejection comes not only from above, from institutions and power. It lives in the little things of everyday life, in those conversations where you fall silent so that you are not considered too much, in the eternal feeling that you are a stranger, in attempts to establish contact, which are smashed against the wall of indifference and the noise of empty entertainment. You talk about silence, and in response you are told about reality show. You ask a question about the meaning, you are answered with a meme, and gradually you fall silent. Not because there is nothing to say, but because no one is listening. Society doesn't know what to do with those who see too much, so it turns them into lone wolves. But there are the difference between loneliness by choice and loneliness as a punishment. The first is freedom. The second is expulsion. And that's exactly what many thinking people are worried. Expulsion for not fitting into the uniform. But don't be fooled. This loneliness, not the end. It can be the beginning of a new way of life, more authentic, more conscious, more free. To understand why this isolation is inevitable but also necessary, we need to look deeper into the very essence of human nature. Because the rejection of thought comes not only from culture, it is rooted in biology. And more on this later. You can be the most polite person in the world. You can speak softly, try not to stand out, not to demonstrate superiority. But if you're really smart, sooner or later you'll notice something disturbing. The mere presence causes tension even in silence. Even if you don't say anything, even if you don't express a shadow condemnation, people feel it. And it's not just a social reaction, it's biology. The human brain is tribal. We evolved in small groups where survival depended on community acceptance. To be expelled meant death. And we still have deep in us the fear of rejection, the fear of someone who violates the integrity of the group. And the mind, who asks too many questions, is perceived as a threat. It is important to understand that it is not about what you say, but that you see what others do not see. This is felt as instability, as danger. When you question the ordinary, you don't laugh at strangers' jokes, bring up uncomfortable topics, you break invisible rules, and the other person reacts without even realizing this. Neuroscience shows that when someone feels intellectually vulnerable, the medulla, the center of fear and threat, is activated in the brain. Intelligence is perceived as a predator, not because you are physically dangerous, but because you symbolize unknown. And the unknown is always frightening. Modern society only intensifies this effect. School standardizes thinking. Social networks create soap bubbles. Algorithms are not interested in you thinking. They want you to click. And you, with this restless mind, with a thirst for meaning, do not fit into the model. Your dissatisfied, superficial answers, you're digging deeper. And this is a problem. For a world built on appearances, you are a failure. Thee called difficult, strange, too serious. But the truth is, you're a living reminder that most people, he simply exists without living, repeats without comprehending, sleeps without being aware. And then the question arises, what to do with this knowledge? How do you live in a society that leaves no room for such minds? How not to go crazy from isolation? How to maintain clarity without being broken by the suspension of rejection? This is what we will analyze in the next part. Because if you feel that your mind is singling you out, if you want to understand why this is the cause of pain, you must find out the truth about himself. If you've seen this far, then you know what it's like not to fit in. And no, you don't have to adapt at all costs, but you need to learn not just to survive, but to live for real, even in a world that seems to have been created to silence people like you. Question. Now it's not about changing your essence. The question is to turn your clarity into strength, your own sensitivity into wisdom. His loneliness in the shelter. And Arthur Schopenhauer, despite all the pessimism of his ideas, did not consider that an intelligent person is doomed to suffering. He believed that the mind is not a sentence, but a calling, and the loneliness that accompanies the mind is not a punishment, but a path. He wrote that the thinker must accept his isolation as a refuge, not as a prison. After all, it is in silence, in introspection, in detachment from the crowd that true clarity is born. Loneliness is destiny, exceptional souls. If you feel that no one understands you, that conversations are exhausting and social meetings drain the soul, maybe it's time to stop trying to squeeze in where there is no place for you. Cut it out. Fight for acceptance where depth is considered flawed. Start choosing people, places, conversations. Replace quantity with quality. One sincere dialogue is worth 1,000 empty phrases. This does not mean completely fence yourself off from the world. It means finding a way to be in it and not lose yourself. One of the valuable skills to learn: modulate the language. Not every space deserves your depth. Not every listener is ready for your view. This is not a betrayal of yourself. This is a strategy. Schopenhauer said, "Never do not reveal the depth of your thoughts to those who live on the surface." Use the mind as a selective mirror. Show reflection only to those who are really ready to watch. Another key is to create space for self-expression. It can be a diary, a channel, art, music, a letter. Let your mind not only analyze, but also create. Because the intellect, which finds no way out, is destroyed from within, and the directed one transforms the invisible into beauty, into words, meaning, and finally, find your own. Let there be few of them. Let them be far away. The internet gives a chance to unite those who used to be divided by cities and countries, book clubs, philosophical forums, personal correspondence. All this can to become an island of peace for those who feel they are thinking too much. Your pack exists. You just need to stop looking for recognition in places where you can't really be seen. But even if you find your own, even if you create space for yourself, even if you learn to be silent when necessary and speak when appropriate, there is truth to be accepted with maturity. To be intelligent in a world that fears the mind will always be a challenge. And the deeper you go, the lonely the path can seem. But in this path, there is a hidden gift, quiet, invisible, but priceless. The gift of seeing what others do not notice. And if you learn to use it, you will turn what you perceived as a weakness into a source of strength, a real one. Yes, for the ability to see, you have to pay deeper. For the ability to think too much, to feel too acutely, the price is awareness. And awareness, despite the popular myths, does not bring peace. It brings the truth. And the truth almost always hurts. Chances are you've already tried to be. Like everyone else, he tried to adjust, to calm down, to pretend, to seem less deep, less analytical, less himself. But every time, when you did it, something real died inside. Because in pretense there is no freedom, there is only fatigue. The irony is that a world that rejects you for your otherness will never reward you for imitating. But in the turn, what makes you a stranger is what makes you necessary. This world needs eyes that see in darkness, in voices that break the silence of comfort, in minds that do not obey superficiality, and you are alone of them. It's not about adjusting, it's about taking your place. Turn your discernment into a tool, not a burden. Turn loneliness into clarity, pain into art, your restless mind into a beacon for those who are still wandering in the fog. You didn't come into this world to be liked. You have come to wake you up. Yes, It means sometimes to go alone, to be alone misunderstood, to be excluded from circles, to be ignored. But don't be fooled. People don't reject you, they reject what they can't yet understand. And everything true, new, strong, is always first. She was ridiculed and only later confessed. Schopenhauer, Nietzsche, Pascal, Tesla, Turing did not recognize all of them in life. They were all too much. And nevertheless, they were the ones who shaped the future. You carry the same spark. The only difference is that you have a chance to realize your role before it's too late. Accept yourself before the world accepts you. If you have listened to the end, and at some point I thought, this is about me, you are not alone. There are more people like you than it seems. And the most important, they hear, see, and feel the same way you do. It's just that many people are silent. They are silent so as not to hurt, so as not to be rejected, so as not to seem too complicated. But it's time for this silence break. If at least one word resonates with you, leave a comment. I see. It's more than just a phrase. This is a sign that you are awake, that you are aware that you are not living in an illusion, but in reality with all its complexities, pain, and majesty. I see that this is a flogging of those who can no longer close their eyes, who feels more than I would like to, who thinks even when it would be easier to forget, who cannot be satisfied with explanations, who do not touch the soul, who seek the truth, even if it is inconvenient, even if it hurts, even if it leads to loneliness. You are not broken. You are not superfluous. You are necessary. It is people like you who move humanity forward, quietly, unobtrusively, without applause, but with a power that changes everything. If you feel that you have to go further, continue this inner journey, delve into self-understanding, unravel the nature of the human mind, and uncover the invisible fabric reality, be sure to watch the following video. It is important, but before you leave, like it if it's in the video you recognized yourself. Subscribe if you want to continue on the path of awakening with others who also see. And the main thing is to write your response. Even one phrase can become the very light for another who now feels the same, lonely. You are needed. Your voice matters. Your clarity is light.